Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and you'll never miss a story again. You can tell a lot about a person by how they act when they think they're not being watched. That thought hit me on a rainy Tuesday morning, as I sat in my parked car across the street from a cafe I'd never once stepped foot inside. I wasn't there for the coffee. I wasn't there by coincidence either. I was watching the woman I had spent 8 years building a life with, my wife, Taylor, laugh a little too easily across the table from a man who wasn't me. She didn't look over her shoulder once. That's how I knew it wasn't new. When someone cheats, they're anxious at first, nervous. They scan the room. They check their phone constantly. But Taylor looked relaxed, comfortable even, like she had done this before. And I sat there soaking in the view of a life I didn't recognize anymore. The week before, I had found a receipt in her coat pocket. 2 coffees, 1 slice of carrot cake, 1 tiramisu. I wouldn't have thought twice about it, except the timestamp said 11:38 a.m. on a Wednesday. She'd told me she was working through lunch that day. I don't know why I kept that receipt. Something about the way it felt in my hand, crumpled but deliberate, made me slide it into my desk drawer instead of throwing it away. That was the beginning. I started noticing other small things, changes, not dramatic ones, but just enough to feel like a ghost was following me through my own home. The way Taylor turned her phone face down on the table, the fact that she no longer kissed me goodbye in the mornings, the new perfume she said was a gift from a coworker, even though she hated floral scents, and her laugh, once easy and full, now reserved, distant. We used to cook dinner together. Now she came home full, always saying she had grabbed something with the girls. I wanted to believe her. For a while I did, but belief turns into denial when the puzzle pieces stop fitting. That Tuesday at the cafe shattered whatever illusion I'd been clinging to. I watched them laugh. His hand brushed hers. Her smile lingered too long. And I realized I wasn't watching a fling. I was watching familiarity, intimacy, something grown in the shadow of my absence. I didn't confront her that night, or the next. Instead, I started paying attention, not just to her, but to myself. I wasn't interested in some messy confrontation. I didn't want to become the screaming, broken man that shows up in movies after finding out his wife is cheating. I wanted answers. I wanted truth. And when that truth came, I wanted to be ready. So I began collecting evidence, not out of paranoia, but preparation. Every late-night text she sent and quickly deleted. Every unexplained charge on our joint account. Every day she came home claiming to be tired from work when the GPS history on her phone said otherwise. I documented everything, silently, calmly. The man she was meeting? His name was Evan, worked in advertising, divorced, older, wore designer watches and had a permanent tan. I found him on social media within 10 minutes. His profile was open, just enough to confirm what I needed. Taylor wasn't just cheating. She was auditioning for a new life. She had already started pulling away financially too. I noticed her transferring money from our shared savings into her personal account in small amounts. Nothing outrageous, but over time it added up. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because when a house is on fire, you don't try to argue with the flames. You just get what you need and walk out before the roof caves in. The irony was that she thought I was oblivious. She had started treating me like I was wallpaper. I could feel it in her tone, see it in the way she no longer asked about my day, like I was just a fixture in the life she was slowly exiting. She underestimated me. Most people do when you're quiet. But quiet doesn't mean blind, it means observant. I called a lawyer, a discreet one, not because I was planning to make a scene, but because I wanted to get everything in place before I made my move. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of playing the role of the loving husband, of packing her lunch, nodding through her lies, smiling as she kissed my cheek with lips that tasted like someone else's cologne. 3 weeks of watching her walk through the door every evening, thinking she still had the upper hand. What she didn't know was that during those 3 weeks, I had already transferred my salary to a separate account. I'd separated the bills, spoken with a real estate agent, printed every screenshot, every record, every whisper of betrayal, and tucked it into a neat black folder labeled Closure. The final straw came on a Saturday. We had dinner plans. She canceled an hour before, saying her friend Maya had a crisis. but Maya had texted me that morning, asking if we were still coming to the dinner party at her place. So I knew. And when Taylor came home at midnight, mascara smudged, hair out of place, claiming she just needed a night with the girls, I nodded and said nothing, because the trap was already set. The next morning, I made her breakfast, waffles, her favorite. She smiled, surprised. "What's this for?" "Just wanted to do something nice," I said. She kissed my cheek. "Thank you." I smiled back, because that would be the last breakfast I ever made her. What she didn't know was that while she was in the shower, I'd placed the folder on her seat at the table, along with the legal documents, the account summaries, and a simple note that read, "I know. I just chose not to scream." She came downstairs humming. I listened from the hallway as her footsteps slowed. I didn't need to see her face. The silence said everything. She didn't come looking for me. She didn't need to, because I was already gone. Not physically. I waited a few more hours before I left for good, but emotionally, spiritually, she lost me the second she smiled at that man in the cafe. I packed my bags while she sat at the table in stunned silence. Said nothing as I walked out the door, and I didn't look back. Because real revenge isn't loud, it's final. It's disappearing from the life someone thought you'd always be too weak to leave. And I wasn't weak anymore. I was free. I didn't expect her to chase after me that morning. And she didn't. When I walked out of that house, I left behind more than furniture, walls, and photographs. I left behind the version of me that tolerated being invisible. I didn't need to slam doors or shout accusations. I had made my point without saying much at all. My car was already packed. I drove to the small apartment I'd signed a lease on 2 weeks earlier. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was mine. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal. But there was something freeing about knowing nothing inside had been touched by betrayal. I turned off my phone for 2 full days. When I finally turned it back on, I had 17 missed calls from Taylor. 4 voicemails. A string of texts. None of them apologetic, just confused, grasping for control. "Where did you go?" "We need to talk. Please don't be dramatic." Then, one message that finally dropped the mask. "You think you're punishing me? This is petty." That one made me smile, not because it hurt, but because it told me everything I needed to know. She still thought she held the power, but I had taken it with me when I walked out. I didn't respond. Silence is a mirror. When someone stares into it, they start seeing themselves more clearly. And from the looks of it, Taylor didn't like what she saw. Because the messages didn't stop. They got longer, more desperate. "Okay, I messed up, but I never meant to hurt you. You can't just vanish like this. We have a life together. Please, just meet me once. Just talk to me." I read them all. Then I archived the thread. I wasn't going to be cruel. I wasn't out to destroy her, but I also wasn't going to play the part of the understanding husband who gets left in the dust only to welcome her back with open arms once the fantasy falls apart. And fall apart it did. I found out through a mutual acquaintance that Evan, her little secret, had gone back to his ex-wife. Apparently their relationship had always been complicated, and Taylor was just a phase in his so-called healing. The night I left, she had texted him. He didn't respond. 2 days later, he blocked her number. That's when her messages to me changed tone. Now she was apologizing. Now she was crying through voicemails. Now she was promising therapy, change, growth. The same woman who once looked at me like a safety net was suddenly realizing she had jumped without checking if anyone would catch her. But here's the thing about safety nets. They don't stay in place forever, especially when the one holding it up gets tired. I went to work. I came home. I cooked for one. I took up running again. I reconnected with an old friend from college, someone who reminded me of the version of myself I had put away in a drawer to make space for Taylor's ambitions. She used to be the center of my world. Now she was just a lesson, and I was a better man for it. One evening, maybe a month after I left, I walked into my building and found her sitting outside on the steps. Same as Ava did in that other story I once read online. She had the same lost expression, the same air of confusion that came from believing too deeply in a backup plan that wasn't waiting for her. She stood up when she saw me. "You're really not going to talk to me?" she asked. I unlocked the door. "I am now." She followed me up without asking. I let her. Not because I wanted to hear excuses, but because I wanted her to see with her own eyes that I was okay, that I was not broken, that the man she once thought would wait forever had stopped waiting a long time ago. Inside, she looked around the small apartment. She walked slowly, taking in the sparsely decorated walls, the books on the shelf, the single mug on the kitchen counter. "You live here now?" she asked, almost surprised. I nodded. She turned to me. "You always said you liked the house." "I liked our life," I said, "until it stopped feeling like mine." She swallowed hard. "I messed up," she said. I nodded again. I don't know. I thought we were drifting apart. I didn't mean for it to happen the way it did." "You didn't mean for it to get caught," I said gently. That shut her up for a moment. "I was lonely," she finally admitted. "And instead of talking to me, you handed that loneliness to someone else." She stepped closer. "I made a mistake. I know that now. But I've been going to therapy. I'm trying to understand what went wrong." "I'm not mad at you anymore," I said. She looked startled. "You're not?" "No, but that doesn't mean I want you back." Her shoulders sank. "You really won't give us another chance?" "I gave us everything I had. The only thing I didn't give was a reaction." She sat on the edge of the couch, quiet, processing. "I still love you," she said. I didn't respond, because maybe she did. Or maybe she missed the version of me who waited around, who showed up no matter how many times she forgot to choose me. But the man she loved, the one she once called safe, boring, dependable, that man no longer lived here. "I just thought we had more time," she whispered. "We did," I said, "until we didn't." She nodded slowly, then stood. "I guess I should go." I opened the door for her. She hesitated, like she wanted to say more. But instead she stepped into the hallway and left without looking back. This time I didn't feel anything. No sadness, no relief. Just peace. Because closure doesn't come from conversations. It comes from clarity. And I was clear. The next day, she sent one final message. "Thank you for everything. I'll always be sorry." I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing left to say. There's a strange kind of freedom in finality. No arguments, no cliffhangers, no maybe one day, just a door closing gently behind you, sealing off the noise for good. That's where I found myself in the weeks after Taylor's last visit. Alone, yes, but not lonely. Not in the way she had been. I was finally living a life that was mine, fully mine, and it turned out to be quieter than I expected. But in that quiet, I found peace. People often assume revenge is loud, that it has to come with yelling, slamming doors, burning photos. But the most devastating revenge is often just indifference. It's not needing someone to hurt in order to heal. It's letting them fall on their own sword, without ever lifting one yourself. Taylor's last message remained unread. I saw the preview, skimmed the words, and archived it. That was the last time her name lit up my phone. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. The silence told her everything I didn't have to say. After that, I focused on building, not just a new life, but a new me. I started waking up early, just for the quiet of dawn. I found joy in routines again, pouring coffee into my one favorite mug, walking the same street each morning, planting herbs on the tiny balcony of my apartment. I picked up woodworking, a hobby I'd shelved during our marriage because we never had the space. Turned out space wasn't the issue, it was permission. And now that I wasn't waiting for someone to validate my time, I did whatever I wanted with it. I joined a weekend hiking group. Not because I needed company, but because I was learning how to enjoy people without sacrificing parts of myself. I laughed more, talked less, listened deeper, and slowly, the version of me that she outgrew, he evolved. He became someone even I hadn't met before. I didn't date for a long time. Not because I was closed off, but because I was content. There's a kind of wholeness that comes after surviving someone who made you feel like too much and not enough at the same time. But life has a way of surprising you. Her name was Elise. We met at a bookstore, nothing dramatic. I reached for a copy of a novel and she made a joke about how overrated the author was. I laughed. We started talking. Then we started walking. She didn't ask about my past, not right away. And I didn't offer it. We talked about books, food, places we wanted to travel. I told her I'd been to Italy once and spent more time people-watching than sightseeing. She said that was the best way to understand a place. There was no rush, no pressure, just presence. The way she listened made silence feel like a language we both understood. And the way she looked at me, like I was still whole, even after being broken, reminded me that healing wasn't something you achieved and forgot. It was something you practiced every day. I never told her much about Taylor. Eventually, I said something vague. I was married before. It ended quietly. She nodded. Quiet can be powerful. I smiled. Yeah, it was. Meanwhile, Taylor faded into a memory. I heard bits and pieces through mutual friends. She sold the house, took a job in another city, tried dating someone new, but it didn't last. Apparently, she asked about me once. How's he doing? The answer, I'm sure, wasn't what she wanted to hear. Because I wasn't miserable. I wasn't curled up in some shadow of the life she left behind. I was thriving in a life she never saw coming. One built from the ground up, brick by quiet brick. The day I finalized the divorce, I took myself out for dinner. Sat alone at a small table, ordered steak and a glass of red wine, and toasted silently to the end of a chapter I once thought I'd never escape. There were no tears, no bitterness, just relief. Some people wait for closure from the one who hurt them. But I realized closure comes when you stop looking for it in someone else's hands. Taylor never got that. Her last attempt came nearly a year later. It was a simple message. I'm moving away. Just wanted to say I hope you're doing well. I stared at it for a moment, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Then I deleted it without replying. And that was the last time her name passed through my life. Elise and I eventually moved in together. Not out of obligation, but because it felt right. Our home is quiet, peaceful. We have shelves full of books, a spice rack I built by hand, and a coffee machine that never seems to rest. Sometimes we walk past couples in restaurants, people who don't speak, who stare at their phones more than each other, and I wonder how many of them are already halfway out the door like Taylor once was. But I don't linger on the thought, because I'm not afraid of being left anymore. I'm not afraid of becoming boring or too stable or too predictable. If anything, I've learned that what some call boring, others call dependable. What one woman dismissed, another cherished. And that's the quiet power of walking away with your dignity, not to punish someone else, but to protect yourself. A friend once asked me if I'd take Taylor back if she came back changed, if she proved she was sorry. I told him, forgiveness doesn't always mean reopening the door. Sometimes it means sealing it shut and wishing them well from the other side. That's what I did. And in doing so, I found more than peace. I found myself. So no, this story didn't end with a dramatic confrontation or a tearful reunion. It ended the moment I chose silence over shouting, stillness over chaos, and self-respect over waiting to be chosen again. I don't need revenge stories anymore, because nothing unsettles the person who betrayed you more than realizing you're not even angry. You've simply moved on, quietly, completely, and without ever looking back.